Parshat Mishpatim, of course, is many, many laws, all the laws that govern your daily life. What happens if your car breaks down? What happens if your neighbor's car breaks down? What happens if you accidentally bang your friend's car? What happens if somebody steals, etc., etc.? Over and over again, laws of lending, laws of all sorts of different civil laws to govern daily life for people when the Jewish community made it to Israel. But towards the end of the list, before we get into a little story that we get back to with God's angel at the end of the Parsha, what we get to at the end of the list is all of a sudden, strangely, unexpectedly, we are told about the three pilgrimage festivals. Shalosh Regalim tachogli bashana. 3 times a year, you should hold a festival for me. Chag Hamatzot, the Feast of the Unleavened Bread, 7 days in the month of Aviv, the springtime when I took you out of Egypt. Chag Katzir, the Feast of the Harvest, of the first fruits of your work, of what you sow in the field. And then we have Chag HaAsif, the Feast of the Ingathering at the end of the year. Of course, what we know more popularly is Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. But here, they're listed differently. And we'll just talk a little bit today about two aspects, sort of two questions. One, what are they doing here when we have in the Torah here the list of civil laws? These are not civil laws. And 2, this is one of the 3 places in the Torah where we have the Shalosh Regalim. They're presented to us 3 different times, the 3 pilgrimage festivals, if I am correct, here in Sefer Bamidbar and in Sefer Devarim. And are they all, not Sefer Bamidbar, Sefer Emor and Sefer Devarim, and what are the sort of the differences between them? So let's start with that second question. So the second question, right? Why are they listed 3 times, and is there sort of a different focus? So firstly, here in the book of Shmot, they're described much more by their function than by their name. Right? In Mishpatim, they're not called Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. There is an allusion in the Pesach one to Chag HaMatzot, to the idea that God took us out of Egypt, but they're identified by their agricultural moments. In fact, I think it was 19th century biblical scholars who talked about that there were perhaps pagan festivals that existed, agricultural festivals, and the Jewish historical festivals sort of combined together with these pagan festivals to make the two festivals come together. But really, what we start with is we have both of these. Here, the aspect is much more. It's not on the historical, but it's on the agricultural. It's their function. Okay, that's one thing that's different. In Vayikra, it's a list that are much more about the karbanot, about the sacrifice. Think of the book of Vayikra, Torah Kohanim. The second half of the book really is about Kedusha, much more about sanctity, about many things. But Vayikra, obviously a big part of it is sacrifice. So there it's within the list of sacrifices. And in Vayikra as well, it's we give the calendar dates and the details of the calendar. In Parshat Re'eh, in Sefer Devarim, it's much more about the joy of the nation. It's much more about the simcha, the joy of the nation going up together. And it's about social inclusion, including everybody into giving to the Levi, to your servant, to the slave. Everybody has to be included. So here we have no dates. We don't have sacrifice. We don't have this language of joy. It's not about, right, celebrating Yetziat Mitzrayim or celebrating the fact that God gave us Sukkot. This is about the function of the holidays, and it's about appearing, not celebrating. Obviously, I'm not saying that you don't celebrate, but in the list, what it is functionally doing here. So it's framed in a sense as much more being accountable. It's like the mandatory audits. And think about, and this gets back to our first question, we'll discuss it more, but what is this coming on the heels of? This is Parshat Mishpatim. These are all these laws that are related to workers and other people's property and your responsibilities to tell the truth and not to lie and lending money. So it's almost like 3 times a year you have to file your taxes. 3 times a year, you have to show up in front of the judge. Everybody has to show up. And the word that's used, the name of God, is the name that's used is Ha'adon. Shalosh pamim bashana, Yera'eh kol zechurcha et pnei Ha'adon. 3 times a year, you have to come and you have to stand in front of the master, Ha'adon, and then it uses the name of God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hashem. So this is very different. This is, right, it's telling it to us within the context of your social structure, damaging your responsibilities to others. Do you lie? And therefore, it's a very, very different type of list. It's like it's an audit. Have you exploited workers? Have you damaged other people? 3 times a year, you have to show up before God, and that is within the sort of the context of this parsha of Parshat Mishpatim. So this is going to be right, the most legal version of the regalim. Again, Amor is much more about ritual. It's about the sacrifice, the list of the sacrifices. It doesn't just have the Shalosh Regalim. It has daily sacrifices. It has Rosh Hashanah. It has Yom Kippur. It has a lot of different sacrifices there. Re'eh is much more the national joy and the happiness, remembering the joyous days and making sure that that joy is everybody. Everybody is included in the joy. Mishpatim is more of the moral, judicial aspect of it. And so each of the different times that the regalim, the Shalosh Regalim, are mentioned in the Torah, they are different. And obviously we experience them in the aftermath afterwards with all 3 of the different functions. It's not just one of the functions, but all 3. And that leads us into getting back to now our first question. Right? So we've talked about this being a different focus. It's not about what the details of the sacrifice. It's not about the joy of the entire nation celebrating the historical Sukkot that God gave us in the desert, celebrating the fact that we are free. This is making a very different sort of point. And the point that this is making is that justice occurs. And justice is going to ultimately be not just about man and man, but about God. If there is no God, civil law is policy. And Mishpatim is teaching that all of these laws, all this is not just a social contract, it's divine service. Right? If you go and you are lending the money properly and not taking interest, and you're not lying, and you're not stealing, and you are not swearing falsely in God's name, and you're not damaging other people, etc., then what are you? You're not just included within the social construct, same basic things. You are part of a nation that's in service of God. This is Avodat Hashem. The civil code, eventually the ending of the civil code is you have to be standing Lifnei Ha'adon Hashem. You are standing in front of God. All of justice, all of human accountability comes from the Mikdash. It comes from the Mishkan. And so that's one way of looking. And I think it's a beautiful way, right? If you do these laws, it's not just that you're not harming another, or like we said yesterday, you actually have to do something positive. You have to go and help even your enemy, the person you hate. You have to go and help their donkey. And it's not just flowing out of social construct and social contract and similarities between people and being a half-decent human being. It is something even more, and nothing wrong with that. And that's a very good way to be a good person, but it goes even beyond that. It's being eternal. It's being divine. It's being part of Am Yisrael in our relationship and our Brit, our covenant with God. A couple of other things to put together with that, which is interesting. What do the Shalosh Regalim do then for the Jewish people? Right? So you have the rich, you have the poor, the people who can lend the money, the people who have to borrow the money, and right, all these laws are how we make justice and equity and equality and caring about the widow and the orphan. All the things, not all the things, but some of the things that we've spoken about over the last number of days. Are obviously many laws beyond that. But think about it. everybody has to stand in front of God. It doesn't matter if you're the laborer or the landowner. It doesn't matter if you're the guy who was judged or if you're the judge. It doesn't matter if you're a poor or if you are the rich man. After a long list of regulations and laws, the Mishpatim that tell us about inequality and power and harm and how we are supposed to stay away from those things and make it a system that is just and equitable, in the end, what are we told? 3 times a year, everybody stands equally before God. It's kind of like saying, in the end, everybody ends up in the ground, in the dirt. It doesn't matter how wealthy you were. It doesn't matter how prominent you were. You end up in the ground the same way somebody else. It's said here in a little nice, in a little nicer way. 3 times a year, we stand equally before God. Ha'adon, the master, sees all of us. And it's kind of like a regrounding of the justice system, right? Oh, you think you're the top notch. You think you're the big dog. You're the great guy. You have all the power. You have all the influence. Well, you know what? You're standing in front of God just like everybody else. You're not better than anybody else. So it's like a reset button for society. Everybody comes together and stands in front of God. And so, and one last aspect we can have to it, but we see sort of, I think, the answers to the 2 questions that we're given. We'll give one last sort of idea beyond it. We have 3 different lists of the 3 different regalim. Just to review, they have different. Each one has a different focus. In Sefer Devarim, it's about the joy, the happiness of society, including everybody to that joy and happiness of celebrating the great historical holidays of the Jewish people: Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, the giving of the Torah, the going out of Egypt, the booths, God providing for us in the desert. In Vayikra, it's the rituals, it's the karbanot, it's the sacrifices. That's what it's telling to us. It's the exact dates, when you have to give the sacrifice, how you have to give the sacrifice. But here, it's about the idea of it being part of the justice system. The justice system emanates from God. It comes back, and that's the idea by having the list here. Let me finish with one other thing that we know, sadly, very often we see. Right? We know there are some people who are very good Jews when it comes to Ben Adam L'Makom. They put on their tefillin, they go to shul, but business-wise, ethically, they're not quite the paragons of virtue. There are other people who do it the other way. They're beautiful publicly, they're ethically, they're kind, and they're good people, but they're absent before God. The Torah places these 2 things together because the Torah's message is if your mishpat doesn't lead you to regalim, then something is broken. And if you only have the regalim, you won't get there. You need the mishpat to get to the regalim. Much like we saw, of course, Yeshaya say, Lama li rov zivchechem. God says to the Jewish people, I don't need your sacrifices. What's the point of the sacrifice if you are a bad, evil person, if you're crooked, if you're taking advantage? And so putting these 2 things together, the ritual and the civil, it's all coming from God. God demands honesty in money, but God also demands presence in his house. And so we have this list of the regalim, and it's very, very important. It has a different focus, and it has to be mentioned here in the lengthy list of the civil laws in the Torah. It needs to be here because we do not have a bifurcated system. It's a holistic system. The 2 things come together. There may be people who are better Ben Adam L'Chavero, there may be people who are better Ben Adam L'Makom, but you cannot have one existing without the other. Both our vertical, it's not really vertical, but we'll say our vertical relationship with God, this was a hand going up, and our horizontal relationship with other people, whether they're shorter or taller than us, still more horizontal than our relationship with God, they have to come together to truly embody the vision and the demands that God has for us. And thus, we're not just going to have the civil laws, we're going to end them with the ritual. Everybody together stands in front of God at least 3 times a year.